fake meat is better for you than real meat. At least that's what a study and NBC want you to think. Let's check it out now.
Welcome back. A new report out today suggesting that plant-based alternatives may be healthier for the heart than meat despite being ultra-processed. An analysis of previous studies found that risk factors for heart disease like total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, which is, by the way, the bad one, and body weight all improved when various animal-based meats were replaced with plant substitutes. I want to bring it.
LDL is not the bad one. Okay, let's get that straight. But then we talk about body weight. And when we talk about body weight and studies and we say, oh, people that ate real meat had a higher body weight, that doesn't take into account what that meat was in, what part of that meal the meat was in. So was it red meat because they're eating double quarter pounders every day or a double quarter pounder meal every day? So they're also eating French fries and Coke along with that. However, we don't know because the study would just have been, have you eaten red meat in the last however long?
Dr. Natalie Azar to talk more about this. So we have been kind of talking about this bad ultra-processed food for your health in general. But this report is essentially saying if you're comparing these meat alternatives, for instance, like Beyond Meat, like I eat a lot of that because I don't eat meat, I only eat fish, to meat, it's a better alternative?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I like the way this study was done, and of course, the reason that the study was done is that for years we've been telling people to eat less red meat, right? And so a lot of people have.
And how have we done with that? How's people's health outcomes been as a result of that advice?
Turned to these, different plant-based sort of options to get the same flavor, to get the same, sort of idea about eating meat. And what the study in fact did show was that there were a lot of these cardiovascular parameters that really did improve. What study has not been done, Yasmin?
Okay, but when we're looking at things in isolation, we can't say that it's an improvement. Like we say, LDL gets lower. Okay, well, LDL getting lower is not necessarily a good thing.
Is comparing outcomes in people who eat red meat versus plant-based products. For example, does that improvement in your HDL translate into a reduction in heart attack and stroke? We don't have that data.
Long-term outcomes.
Long-term, exactly.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? There is no long-term information. So I can start eating these fake meats, and because they're made of plants, my cholesterol is likely to fall within the guidelines now. So they'll say, oh, you're doing a good job, excellent. But also, because of all the junk that's in these plant-based meats or these fake meats, I'm likely to start getting more overweight. I'm likely to get closer to getting diabetes, that kind of thing. But they're going to say, oh, you're doing really well. Your cholesterol numbers are awesome. Good job. So there's no long-term information on this. And there's a reason for that. It's, it hasn't been long enough to assess, but also they don't want long-term information because they just want numbers that are going to increase their sales.
We have okay, great, these metabolic things are changing.
Right,
Exactly. But I think if you're talking about just sort of plant-based products in general and sort of this designation as ultra-processed, they're not all created equal. If you have an ultra-processed food that is extraordinarily high in sodium and saturated fat and really, really bad carbs,
like certain potato chips,
perfect example, or pour water into something. Or I know, right? But everything in moderation, we said, right? Or all you need to do is pour a little water in it and boom, you have dinner. That's probably not going to be that healthy.
So now there are levels of ultra-processed food. So now if it's a fake meat that's ultra-processed, then maybe that's okay. But if it's a potato chip or it's pot noodles, well, that's the bad ultra-processed, right? And of course, as she says, everything in moderation. Yeah, it's all about balance.
Right. But if you have something that's pea-based or soy-based and it just happens to look like a hamburger patty and maybe it's ultra-processed, it may not actually be as bad for you as the name would.
Or it may be worse for you than you think it is. And there's no long-term information on what damage that is doing to your body and how much better you would do if you were just eating regular meat.
would imply.
And we don't have that much time left. Yeah, but I find this fascinating. Is it more about what this kind of processed food is made from?
Yes, it is. And so, some guidance for people is to actually look at how much sodium is in there, how much saturated fat is in.
So, okay, blame the salt and the saturated fat. Don't blame the canola oil and the flavor enhancers and the chemicals and the soy and all this junk. It's all salt and saturated fat's fault. Of course.
In there. What is the protein source? Does it have gluten? You might be gluten sensitive. Are there artificial sweeteners? I tell all my patients to eat a whole food plant-based diet. But in the real world, we're all eating some amount of processed food. We have to.
No, we're not all eating some kind of ultra-processed food.
Right? Yeah. I mean, we can't spend all day eating whole food.
Yeah, you need to.
You can. I mean, if you're doing it plant-based, it's going to be a lot of work for you and a lot of cooking and a lot of preparation and a lot of researching of recipes, but you can eat whole foods if you're eating an animal-based diet and do very, very well.
That's what we want to go towards, right? Exactly. The nuts and legumes and fresh vegetables and fresh fruit. Then you don't have to worry about how processed it is.
Right.
So you see that on that liquid plant oils. What liquid plant oils are good for you? Is rapeseed oil good for you? Is sunflower oil good for you? Which ones are good for you?
I think the bottom line is that ultra processed is not ultra bad all the time.
How do your
Yes, it is.
patients react to that recommendation, Dr. Nat?
My patients are really, really they follow every single solitary thing that I tell them to do.
I bet.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. But they'll probably follow your advice that all ultra-processed foods are not bad all of the time, because then they'll go, oh, so that means I can have the Oreo cookies. That means I can have the Snickers bar. If they're not bad all the time. Okay, guys, if you want to see a good video about what you should be eating, check out this awesome interview here.